But in your view, when do we get to the negotiations? And is there any precondition? And the one, of course, people are concerned about, North Korea says they will not come to the table to talk about denuclearization. Our position is that's the only thing worth talking about. How do you get over that? So can you talk about how the diplomatic process might unfold?
Well, first I would say the diplomacy is underway and has been underway. In fact, the entire sanctions regime, the pressure campaign, that is a piece of diplomacy, is how to create an understanding on the part of the North Koreans that the world does not accept this, so that they understand that if they continue, the isolation just continues. So that in and of itself is diplomacy. And it was and was a very deliberate decision taken at the outset of the policy itself, is that simply picking up the phone and calling Kim Jong-un back in February and March when we first were developing this and saying, hey, you know, we really don't like those nuclear tests you're doing. Can we sit down and talk? Probably was not going to get anyone to the table. So I think we took the view and we looked at the past efforts at talks, and the President has touched on this many times, that we've looked at what others tried and failed. And the North Koreans have been masters at always gaming those talks, and they have never proven to be a reliable counterparty. So we decided we were going to undertake this very intensive campaign of sanctions this time, but it was only going to be successful if first we built out very broad international participation. So this wasn't just about the United States and a few other countries, but it was very broad-based in its participation, and it had to have the active engagement of China and Russia in a very serious way. And this really was the beginning of the discussions with China, and much of the decision to go forward hinged on China's telling us they would participate. And I would tell you, in our judgment, they have participated. They are fully implementing the sanctions. That's why it is having an effect. The President would like to see China cut the oil off. The last time the North Koreans came to the table, it was because China cut the oil off. 3 days later, the North Koreans were at the table talking. And the President feels we're really to that stage. So he's putting a lot of pressure on the Chinese to do more with respect to oil. When do the talks begin? We've said from the diplomatic side, we're ready to talk anytime North Korea would like to talk. And we're ready to have the first meeting without precondition. Let's just meet, and we can talk about the weather if you want. We can talk about whether it's going to be a square table or a round table, if that's what you're excited about. But can we at least sit down and see each other face to face? And then we can begin to lay out a map, a roadmap of what we might be willing to work towards. I don't think it's not realistic to say we're only going to talk if you come to the table ready to give up your program. They have too much invested in it. And the President's very realistic about that as well. And so it's really about how do you even begin the process of engagement, because we're dealing with a new leader in North Korea that no one's ever engaged with. And he clearly is not like his father, nor is he like his grandfather. And we don't know a whole lot about what it will be like to engage with him. And that's why I think my expectations of how to start are really framed around, first, I have to know who my counterpart is. I have to know something about them. I have to understand, how do they process? How do they think? Because getting to an agreement, as all of us know in negotiations, means a willingness to talk about a lot of things. Let's just put a lot of things on the table. And what do you want to put on the table? And we'll tell you what we want to put on the table. And the important thing is that we get started. If there was any condition at all to this, is that, look, it's going to be tough to talk if in the middle of our talks you decide to test another device. It's going to be difficult to talk if in the middle of our talks you decide to fire another one off. So I think they clearly understand that if we're going to talk, we have to have a period of quiet. We've got to have a period of quiet, or it's going to be very difficult to have productive discussions. And so we continue to indicate to them, we need a period of quiet. You need to tell us you want to talk. The door's open. But we'll show up when you tell us you're ready to talk.
Right.